Hi again, and today I'm going to review a book which is in the classification of espionage and covert operations, and it's Cold War Counterfeit Spies by Nigel West. Now this is a follow-up to his previous book, Counterfeit Spies, which dealt with the phony memoirs written about people operating during World War II. And the current book, Cold War Counterfeit Spies, obviously takes us into the era, the more modern era, post-war. Because the fact that espionage takes place under a cloak of official secrecy really opens the door for the fantasists to make up their stories and foist them on the public. And in many cases, particularly in the UK, the authorities decline to comment. They have a blanket statement that they don't comment on intelligence activities. So the phonies have been able to get away with it. And a book like this by Nigel West, who is a noted researcher on intelligence matters and has written many serious works on the subject, it's a very welcome spotlight on the whole genre. So one of the sections in the book deals with books written about Northern Ireland, and he starts by giving a really detailed overview of the activities of the SAS and the Det in Northern Ireland. It's a really serious piece of writing, and he actually names some of the names of the officers involved, which adds authenticity to his account. Before going on to talk about a couple of the books that have been written on the subject by phonies, and the first one he highlights, which is a seemingly authoritative book, which was called Soldier E, and it was supposedly based on information passed on by a former member of the SAS, and it concerns the killing of James Green, who was an IRA member, and he was killed by unknown gunmen. Let's put it that way. So the book being discussed is Soldier E. Although the names have been changed, it's basically an SAS patrol, and it involves a character based on Robert Nerak. And it says that this was a hit put on this guy by the British security forces. Well, the counter to that comes from police evidence and forensic crime scene analysis and so on, which Nigel West provides us with, which tends to point the finger at loyalist paramilitaries, and the weapons used were used in other paramilitary killings. So that is one example. And then he talks about the Nemesis file, which was written by Paul Bruce, and it concerns his activities as a member of the SAS in Northern Ireland in 71-72, where he took part in assassinations, and it was written as fact. Upon investigation, the SAS were not operating in Northern Ireland in that time frame, and the identity of the author was revealed to be a guy called Paul Inman, who was a mental patient, had served in the army but never in special forces, and he, because he was claiming to have committed murder, basically, there was an investigation opened by the RUC, and he had to admit that he'd made everything up. So that was one major section of the book. He also, Nigel West covers such contentious books as The 16, written by John Unman. Now we reviewed this on the forum, and basically he claims to have been part of a 16-man covert assassination unit set up by the army, but it was made up of national service personnel. Now, all special forces, after World War II, when there was lots of private armies, the Ministry of Defence decided that all special forces would come under one particular organisation, which was the SAS and the SPS at the time, and so everything was done through them. So the idea that a group of national servicemen would be employed in this manner is just totally far-fetched. So it's not even really worth discussing any further. Another book is Official Assassin, which again I've reviewed, and this is written by Captain Peter Mason, who claims to have been an SAS officer, and a large part of the book concerns going after Nazi war criminals in occupied Germany and basically assassinating them. Now, the claims that he makes run up against a couple of other books that have been written since, quite authoritative histories on the units that actually went after the war criminals, and there is no crossover, there's no acknowledgement that this Baker team, he called it, was operating. And if that's not enough, he then claims to have gone on and had a post-war career doing all sorts of funnies on government service in all sorts of parts of the world, which chunks of other books can be seen in there. You know, he's just taken a chunk from another book and used it. And to me, the whole thing lacks any credibility whatsoever. So that's that. I bought one of those books, and one of the guys in the Combatives group had the other one, and we read them and we swapped them, and we read the other one. So I can't remember which one I'd bought. I think it was Official Assassin, and I swapped it and read 16. And to this day, I don't know who got the worst part of the deal, because the book, not only are they nonsense, but they're not very well written. The next book that I'll talk about is The Feathermen by Ranulph Fiennes, which proposes that due to an SAS operation in Oman based around Mirbat, that there's a revenge operation put into action, and a group of assassins are sent to kill the SAS officer who was in charge at Mirbat, Mike Keeley, and who was still involved in the SAS, and he was about to become a squadron commander. He was a major, and he decided to put himself through some selection walks just to prepare himself, and he died during one of these of hypothermia. And Ralph Fiennes suggests that he was actually assassinated on the Brecon Beacons. Now, Lofty ran that selection course, and he told me that Fiennes had phoned him and made the suggestion, and Lofty just laughed at him He said you must be on drugs because it's so far fetched. So the main thing about it, and the subsequent kind of criticism of this book, is because of the memory of a real SAS officer, Mike Keeley, who died. He was a very brave man, won a medal in Oman, and died in terrible circumstances. And to make a fictional story about it really is in bad taste. Then there's some books about Vietnam, and he mentions The Specialist by Gail Rivers, who's written several books. And I always remember, I'm not sure if it was in The Specialist or another book, but he had guys operating in the jungle, and to save weight, he had them reloading their ammo for their rifles. Now, if you think about it for a second, we reload ammo to save money, not to save weight. The only weight differential is in the cases, okay, because you have to take everything else. You have to take the bullets, primers, the powder, and the cases, but you recover the cases and use them again. That's the only saving. Now, the idea of reloading in the jungle, where you have to take reloading equipment, so how are you going to save weight? Because these are heavy die-cast metal presses and so on. And then you've got to recover the cases. Now, contact drills in the jungle are highly mobile, are pepper potting, moving forward. And then you've got to go back and, while the enemy is still around, and recover all your empty cases. And then you've got to set up a reloading station at some stage. It was just absolute nonsense. I don't know what drugs this guy must have been on to think of things like that. So the book covers many other cases. It mentions Frank Dux, the fake martial arts guy who supposedly entered death matches and was a bit of a name in martial arts circles many years ago. Lots and lots of interesting stories, and Nigel West has done a great job in researching, and he presents what the story says and then he deconstructs it very well based on his knowledge. It's a book I eagerly awaited. I was in correspondence with him for several years about the book and about some of the characters, and when it was published I was delighted, and it's been a favourite of mine.